exploration of one fellow's translation of the Christian scriptures, one chapter at a time. I'm Brandon Rhodes, and across the internet from me is the translator himself, Brandon Velez Johnson. Hi, Brandon.
Hi, Brandon.
We are working our way through the pastoral letter of James, and we are in chapter 3. So we are reading this in the Liberation and Inclusion translation that Brandon here has been working on. It's a work in progress since 2020, crafted with commitments of faithfulness to the text, reading with the oppressed, God always looking like Jesus, belovedness and belonging, avoiding religious technical language, and trauma-informed outcomes and results. So whether you're reading along with us on YouTube or reading through the link in the episode notes in your podcast app, we strongly encourage you to follow your curiosity into the footnotes. There's a lot more there, especially like the nerdier you feel, the more fun you're going to have there. So go ahead, hit pause, and give it a read. All right. Brandon, would you read us some of James 3?
Yeah.
Or all.
I think I'm going to do it all at once, but first I want to kind of say what I think is happening here so you can listen for it.
Oh, yeah. Great.
So this is what if you're familiar with James, it's the tongue, talking about the tongue and how it's like a small fire or the rudder of the ship or the bridle on the horse or whatever, and like that the small part of your body controls like the direction your whole body goes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's unchanged. That is clearly what it's saying. But what it's applied to typically is often things just like saying 4-letter words. Yeah, don't say shit, don't say fuck, don't say bitch,
Yep.
don't say these taboo list of words because it makes old people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I think that has almost nothing to do with it. Where it does come to is if you're using those as a weapon against someone to shame someone, to humiliate someone, to put someone down, I think it still applies. But if it's just like, oh my fucking God, or like, oh my gosh, look at all this shit. Like, that's not what it's talking about.
Saying fuck ice is not something that James is anxious about. He'd probably fist bump it.
Yeah, although that's kind of straddling the line because that's still like at someone, even though it's at the power structure versus
it's at the principality and power. It's the
right.
Love the cop, fuck the police kind of scenario.
Yeah. So in this, apparently, we're gonna get into more explicit language in this episode about James 3 than we have ever done before.
And how?
But what I think it's doing instead is look the beginning and the end of this chapter are both clearly about teachers, leaders in the church, people who are responsible for guiding the rest of the body of Christ in understanding the significance of the gospel and how we treat people. Mm-hmm. So it's accountability for leaders and teachers, not make sure your 12-year-old doesn't use a 4-letter word. Right.
Or like a softer sense of like, be polite, be courteous, don't be impolite, don't be incourteous, or don't gossip.
Courtesy is usually a good thing.
It is. It's much more subjective.
But it's completely subjective and not really the primary thing this is talking about.
Yeah. If you look at it through the lens of harm and dehumanization, it makes more sense within this chapter and within the wider literary cloth of or papyrus of James.
Right. Yep. And so, looking at it in context of James overall, which is very much about power and how we are treating other people, especially the outsiders, especially the poor, and trying not to favor the wealthy and powerful.
Yes.
Explicitly anti-favoring the wealthy and powerful, and instead favoring the poor and the outsiders, the oppressed. Then having a weird detour into don't say cuss words
Yes.
is really weird. That is not what's happening here. Like no one who actually understands how to read literature would say that's what this is about.
Right.
The only way you can get that is if you completely ignore everything else and only look at a single sentence out of context. Um, but that's how I've always heard it taught. Always.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Um, and I think a second thing that's going on here is the imagery of like the tongue. I think it's very literally like the tongue being a small part of the body is guides the whole part. I think that's still true.
Yep.
But I think there's kind of a purposeful tongue-in-cheek use of the word body, and I just think Pauline, 1 Corinthians 12, many parts, one body. The
Mm-hmm.
tongue in the body of Christ is the teachers.
Uh-huh.
And then the rest of the body of the Christ is the body, the full body. So I think that's what it's doing here is the primary thing is the small thing guides the large thing. Yes. And then
Yes.
specifically like underneath that, I think is this double entendre, this double meaning of the teacher's guide, the church.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it's looking at here. So it is specifically about, this is specifically aimed at leaders and teachers, not really just everybody.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
can be applied to everybody in various ways, but that's not what it's really about.
Yeah. If your particularity among the community suggests or enacts some sense of power,
Mm-hmm.
the metaphor should play along with that, as well as like this very sober sense of like we're hold to a more, there it is, verse 1, a more thorough assessment.
Mm-hmm.
Like power, a proper response to looking at power is, yeah, actually hold them to a higher a higher standard.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like that's an
Yeah.
anti-power, or it's a
Right.
really important buffer again. Like power, you can't get away from.
It exists, whether you like it or
It
not.
it exists, and is it in service to shalom? Is it in service to
Right.
the incarnating God? Is it in
Yep.
service to your neighbor and to human
Yep.
flourishing?
And James in particular, and First Timothy also spends a lot of time really talking about higher standards of expectations of accountability for
Mm-hmm.
leaders, the people within the church who have power in some way, which
Mm-hmm.
is ends up being the opposite of how we see things working in churches overall. Like the leaders, the teachers, the elders, the people with power are often held to fewer standards.
Yeah.
Um, so like a pastor who abuses somebody is not causing division, but if someone speaks up and tries to talk about what that pastor has done to them, all of a sudden they're causing division. It's like, no, 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 you're doing this backwards. The pastor should be the one being held accountable, not the person exposing the pastor's bad behavior.
Yes. Or if the pastor um, sexually abuses a minor
Mm-hmm.
in the congregation, um, and then confesses and comes forward, it's not an uncommon story that the woman, it's typically male pastor, female minor, that girl is seen as a temptress. All
Mm-hmm.
these sexist, misogynistic ways of judging her, and how could you, and especially if she's impregnated, and brings the
Mm-hmm.
pregnancy to term, there's all the scarlet letter shit that goes towards her. And
Mm-hmm.
if he gets all pure and contrite heart, at least performatively,
Mm-hmm.
he gets his job. He gets to keep his job and maybe goes to counseling for a little bit. And we
Yeah.
applaud his repentance for committing statutory rape, maybe, or I mean, if it's that, there's prison and civics involved. But even if it's with,
But often, usually, it's not because people don't report it to the authorities.
oh, for
They
Christ's
try to
sake,
keep it in house. Yeah, in house.
I wish it were for Christ's sake. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, holding to standards those in power and having a disposition of compassion for those on the bottom side of the power relationship
Mm-hmm.
is how you have healthy community. It's a pretty important bias.
Yeah. So with all that in
Yeah,
mind,
let's.
let's read this and see how it surfaces.
That was
So,
good.
come. My family, don't have many of you become teachers, having understood that we will receive a more thorough assessment since we all stumble a lot. If anyone doesn't stumble with what they say, they are a mature individual, being able also to guide the whole body as if with a bridle. If we bridle horses, putting bits in their mouths to persuade them for us, then we direct their whole bodies. Look at ships, too. While they are so large and driven by rough storm winds, they are directed by the smallest rudder wherever the impulse of the pilot wants. In the same way, the tongue is a small part of the body, yet acts as if it were big. Look, such a small fire starts such a large forest burning. The tongue is that fire. The tongue is the unjust world system showing up among the parts of our bodies when it contaminates the whole body, and it is ignited by the Hinnom Valley. Every kind of wild animal, even birds, reptiles, and sea creatures, is tamed and has been tamed by every human group. But no one is able to tame the tongue of humans, which is unstable, cruel, and full of deadly poison. We praise the Lord and Father with it, and we speak contemptuously against people who are made according to the image of God with it. Out of the same mouth comes praise and contempt. My family, these things must not become that way. Would it be possible for a spring to gush with sweet and bitter water from the same opening? My family, can a fig tree produce olives, or a vine produce figs? Salt water can't produce sweet water either. Who is wise and knowledgeable among you? Have them show their actions by the kind way they live, with the gentleness that comes from wisdom. But if you have bitter competitiveness and self-promotion in your heart, do not boast of being better than others and tell lies against the truth. This is not the wisdom that comes from above, but just the opposite. It's from the ground, selfish, demonic. Where there is competitiveness and self-promotion, there is instability and every mean-spirited practice. But the wisdom that's truly from above is first pure, then peaceable, equitable, open-minded, full of committed compassion and honorable fruit, non-discriminatory, not acting under false pretenses. The fruit, justness, is planted with peace between those who make peace. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. There are so many footnotes. This is going to be fun. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, I mean, what stands out to you in this first paragraph? I mean, one of the first ones that stands out to me is mature versus perfect. Right?
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. I don't know where it was in or after seminary that the word perfect became something that I raised my eyebrow at, and not being trained in these original languages like you were, I didn't know what may actually be going on there. I just kind of winced at the possibility they were, because it's like, you know, God doesn't call creation perfect. God calls it good. God calls it tov. Goodness, belovedness is the highest form of description for something perfect. Perfect is very Greek, Hellenistic. That's not bad, but it's really, it gets pretty cringy pretty quick when that specific thing from how Greeks thought about reality and divinity. So, and especially with morality, like putting perfection language. I mean, respect to my employers and people I serve Christ with, the Methodists. Perfection, you know, Wesley said onward towards perfection. It kind of has a lot of liabilities, not just the Hellenistic stuff. So I'm pretty happy that you have an educated decision to go somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, the word part of the problem here is that the English word perfect has changed over time.
Mm-hmm.
So in the 1600s, when we had the KJV being written, perfect was actually a good translation because it didn't yet it signify, at least not always, the sense of like flawlessness or 100% what you want it to be all the time,
Yes.
right? Like moral, having reached the finish line, right? Flawlessness is like probably the closest one word that comes to mind for what we usually mean by perfect, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's not what this word means at all. That never means that. There are other words for that, and they show up in like translations like blameless and beyond reproach and those kinds of things. But the word for perfect traditionally is it's related to the word for end or finish. It's something that has been brought to completion or full maturity.
Mm-hmm.
So those are two of the best words for it. It's like complete or mature. Um, it has nothing to do with quality so much as where it is in the process.
Yeah. 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 That um, feels more human.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good thing,
And
to be clear.
yeah, yeah. And so, like, be perfect as I am perfect, that God says. It's not about be flawless as I am flawless. That just is not what it means. Like, it
Mm-hmm.
cannot mean that. This is not like there's multiple meanings and I prefer this one. It's impossible for that Greek word to mean that.
It's strong arming a commitment to God being above sin, which is a
Mm-hmm.
great commitment. It's just not what's
Mm-hmm.
happening there. Yeah.
Right,
As so
right.
often. Yeah.
So, which makes sense. We're talking about teachers. You want don't have many of you become teachers. Just have the mature among you be the teachers.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's an exploration of what maturity really practically looks like. Do they
Mm-hmm.
speak of others in a way that causes harm?
Right. Yeah, going down to verses uh,
Right.
the second paragraph here about talking about speaking contemptuously against people who are made according to the image of God. Do they do
Yes.
that?
Yeah.
They're not mature.
Yeah. Whereas if it's translated as perfection, there is perfection is because it has a purity kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's really easy and tempting to set people up to what we would consider perfection. Um, it's conformity to a rule, to what we think is good and bad. And so
Mm-hmm.
being above our own, cultural inclinations towards certain kinds of judginess. Do they,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just to use the example we've been using throughout the episode so far, do they say fuck or not?
Mm-hmm.
Because clearly, if you say the taboo words, you are not perfect.
Right.
But if you use language that degrades and dehumanizes,
Mm-hmm.
like the R word hypothetically, um,
Right. That's a
that
problem.
is that is immature.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have this whole we've got a lot of leaders in the church, or leaders who are respected by many in the church, uh,
Mm-hmm.
who consistently speak contemptuously against women, or against immigrants, or against people of color, or against people with disabilities, or queer folks, trans folks. Whether they're using bad names or not, they're still speaking
Yes.
about them as if they're less valuable than
Yes.
men, than natural born citizens, than white people, than straight people.
Mm-hmm.
And according to James 3, they shouldn't be leaders.
Yeah.
They're immature,
Yeah.
and you need to get them out of those positions.
Yep. Yep.
They're leading
And
the body of Christ astray.
yeah, the just this last week, a Southern Baptist pastor, might have leadership in the denomination, at least a popular pastor, said he would not serve communion to undocumented immigrants.
Mm-hmm. He has disqualified himself from leadership.
So hard. So hard. Yeah. It is like, that is not a condition for belonging. Saying what you just did, kind of, it's at least a condition for
leadership.
Yeah, for having the mic, having the floor. And
right.
We all are on the spectrum of from immature to mature. We all say and think things that degrade and dehumanize other people. It's kind of part of our wiring. Do you have the capacity? Like when I'm here talking to you in this semi-public space, am I able to at least like commit myself to the responsibility of this microphone and not calling MAGA adherers maggots or whatever? Like, I think all these judgy things and I'd like to be thinking differently.
And it's our job to tame our tongues.
It's our job to tame our tongues and like insist upon the humanization of people who are succumbing to neo-Nazism. It's really trying to commit to a people first kind of grammar that comes from right here and doesn't incline people to hate.
The wrongness of how people act and treat other people without dehumanizing them.
Yes. Yeah, you need to be able to say the truth of harm they are committing to their neighbors without letting slurs. Like, you can say fuck, but you can't call somebody a fuckface.
Right. Yeah. And be mature. Like it doesn't mean you don't belong. Doesn't mean you're going to hell. Doesn't mean you can't be part of the church. Like, it just means that you don't quite get it yet.
Yeah.
And you should not be teaching others.
Yeah, like, hey, maybe tap out from the Bible study facilitation for a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, one of the things that caught my attention is down in verse 14, not as a translation thing, but just as like it clicked for me. So, but if you have bitter competitiveness and self-promotion in your heart, do not boast of being better than others and tell lies against the truth. And the truth here, which I don't know, I've toyed with even capitalizing truth when it's talking about the truth throughout the New Testament. Which honestly, I think the truth is that everyone matters, everyone belongs. Which is clearly what you're seeing in Paul, where it's like, people who follow all the rules of Torah are the ones who belong, right? It's like, nope, everyone belongs. And same here, like if you're putting yourself above others, saying that you belong more than them, that's against the truth that everyone belongs equally.
Yes.
So if you don't teach that everyone belongs equally, you are not yet mature. You should not be a teacher.
If you have competitiveness and self-promotion in your heart, we're like taught that that's part of how you roll. Like, that's part of how you improve your LinkedIn profile. That's part of how you establish why you are worthy to preach, to do all kinds of things. It's in matters of weight and matters of not. It's like, our culture really, in U.S. American culture, has a strong inclination towards like, and it's different than boasting in your dignity. It's different from boasting in your dignity. Like, ain't I a human too? This sense of like, strong back. you know?
Yeah. But the sense of that, like, I'm better than others
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
is the way the world thinks, right? That's
Yeah.
exactly what you're saying. It's American standard culture, LinkedIn corporate ladder kind of culture.
Yeah.
Um, and it specifically says this is not the wisdom that comes from above. It's just the opposite. It's from the ground, the land, the bottom rung of what could be called wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's selfish. It's demonic. It has some strong language here.
Yeah, that escalates there.
Yeah.
Earlier, I want to talk about verse 8, footnote F. No one is able to tame the tongue of humans, which is unstable, cruel, footnote, and full of deadly
Mm-hmm.
poison. And cruel is typically evil.
Right. Which anywhere in the New Testament that you see evil or bad, they translated typically from one of two words, um, kakos or paneros.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to look to remember which one it is here. Probably kakos is my guess, but it's not just like some inherent state of nefariousness, like wickedness in your heart. Like it's always about causing harm, causing
Yeah,
hardship,
yeah,
causing
yeah.
oppression, causing suffering. Always 100% of the time, that's what's in view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it doesn't mean sinfulness. It means something
Right.
very specifically.
Yeah. It's like malicious,
Mm-hmm.
hostile, cruel, causing harm.
Man, and in this like season where like the MAGA energy is so much this like hybrid of absurdism and cruelty. Like the cruelty is the
Mm-hmm.
point of their public
Yeah.
performance and their policy priorities.
Mm-hmm.
So to like really just call it out, really unstable, cruel, and full of deadly poison sounds like a certain Truth Social um, account.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
And the echo chamber of grifters that, excuse me, people who grift uh, downstream of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. People who use what the people at the top rungs of the ladder are doing to acquire more power for themselves.
Yeah, like an actual constructive sense of like how do you help poor white communities is not what those politicians like talk about. They know that what their fans want to hear is stupid libtards, and that like,
Yep.
or those trans people are weird, and it's like, oh, for
Yeah.
God's sake, the cruelty in shit
Literally.
talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, the cruelty in shit talking is just like that's all their talking points. And
Mm-hmm.
there is a subset of like anti MAGA, anti Trump stuff online that does definitely like to lean towards name calling. At least it's
Yep.
punching up. It's a start. It's like this isn't about name
Yeah.
calling. It's about
It's still not mature, maybe,
no,
but
right.
it's
It's not mature.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it's less about the cruelty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Anytime where we have lists
Mm-hmm.
in whether it's Paul or James, that's an area where I tend to have a lot of shifts, and so that's why there's so many here.
Yeah.
Um,
So footnote H: speak contemptuously.
yeah. Um, it's traditionally curses, which then is part of the reason why people think it means four-letter words. But that's not what the word
Uh
curse. Even the word,
yeah.
even the word curses are. It's from something real, but we've forgotten it, like curse words. So, for instance, shit is not a curse word in the original definition because it's not just a taboo. Doesn't It's not a synonym for taboo word.
No.
A curse word technically is one that you're weaponizing, wishing harm, wishing badness for someone else. So a curse would actually be something much more like telling someone to go to hell. not using the word shit.
Or
You're
goddamn them.
wishing bad for them. Yeah, damn you. Yeah, that's a curse. Go to hell. That's a curse. Fuck you is less specific on what exactly it means. It's a vague curse. Right?
Meaningless intensive is one of the word forms for that word in the dictionary.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the sense of that you're saying something to let them know that you want bad things to happen to them. That's a curse. That you think they are worthless. So even just saying, if you called someone a piece of shit or a worthless piece of shit, a son of a bitch, like any of those are curses. The word shit by itself, not a curse. Um, and that's what it's getting at here. It's when we're speaking against people in a way that's to demean them, to make them seem worthless, to tell them how little we care for their well-being. That's speaking contemptuously about them. That's cursing them, and that's what it's talking about here.
So I can call someone the shit, but not a shit.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Got it. I want to go back up there. It's still on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 6. The tongue is that. It's the last phrase here. The tongue is that fire. The tongue is the unjust world system showing up among the parts of our bodies when it contaminates the whole body and is ignited by the Hinnom Valley.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually hell, isn't it?
It is usually hell.
Wow.
Anytime you have Hinnom Valley in this translation, it's Gehenna is the Greek there, which is just a translated form of the Hebrew Gehinnom, the Hinnom Valley or Valley of Hinnom, which is always a reference to, it's a physical location on a map, not like another worldly realm, although it was starting to be by this time used symbolically.
As a literary device,
like,
practically. Yeah.
But it's a reference back to what happened in Jeremiah, where the Babylonians come in and slaughter an obscene amount of the people. I mean, any slaughter is obscene, but like it specifically says so many that there was no one left to bury the dead. And so it's this image of mass slaughter, rotting corpses being eaten by wild animals, left out in the sun, like as a result of the people playing these pyramid games and losing, right? So the monarchy in Jerusalem was living the same way every other monarchy lives, guiding the country in that direction, and they lost the game.
Yeah.
And Isaiah and Jeremiah and then Jesus keep saying, stop playing that game. And especially here in this, like, if you're speaking contemptuously against people made according to the image of God, your pilot light for the fire you're starting is exactly the same stuff that led to the destruction of Jerusalem.
Yeah, creating an us, them, in, out dynamic.
Trying to gain power over others, to one up each other, to gain more power than others.
It will ultimately lead to
death.
You start a fight, somebody's going to punch back.
Yep. And you might win for a while, but no one stays on top forever. Not in that game.
Nope. Yeah, that is much more coherent with the flow of the argument. And it's more literarily evocative. It's better literature, James, than and it's ignited by hell, which is like, okay, that's intense. And there is the sense of like,
I mean, it is called demonic later on, but
it is, yeah. Like that's not the conventional translation is not lacking force, and it's not particularly bad force. It's just like that's not the literary reference that he's making.
Right.
He's not talking about the place of the departed dead. He's talking about a valley full of dead bodies
Right.
who are plugged into this bigger story of pyramid games and antagonisms. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that flows. Like, hey, if you are the leader of this of a like Jesus community, this like Jesus huddle, you got to remember that if the way you talk about other people or about the story that we're part of or what we're about can lead down this path, like the leadership of that day followed the zeitgeist, followed that into this valley of dead bodies.
Mm-hmm.
You have a responsibility, particularly, if James is the um, head of the church in Jerusalem, uh, by the late 60s, things are escalating so fiercely between Judeans and Romans that it culminates in 70 AD, where is it Titus Andronicus comes through and
Mm-hmm.
levels the temple, desecrates the Holy of Holies, and like leaves just a few stones left to this day
Mm-hmm.
in the foundation. It is. I'd be curious. It depends on quite where in the chronology if you think James was written maybe in the 50s or maybe in the 60s or sometimes after. That is a common interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
The looming shadow from the rising sun or the setting of 70 AD is looming, right, in the sense of like, because if you play that game like you see our neighbors doing, to be chosen is not to be violent.
Right.
That game doesn't work, or
Yep.
past tense didn't work.
Yep. You have to do something completely different.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's get down to further down in the chapter here. There's another blitz of lines of words here. I've only got a few minutes left this morning. I've got a couple in mind. What do you want to?
Yeah. I mean, there's just this steady drumbeat of descriptions here, like bitter competitiveness, self promotion, selfish, demonic, competitiveness, self promotion, mean spirited, all
Yeah.
the things that are not mature, right? Um, and then the contrast of things that are pure, peaceable, equitable, open minded, committed compassion, honorable, non discriminatory, not under false pretenses, but justice and peace. Like, that's a really different list.
It's a very different list. Yeah, like
Mm-hmm.
what is equitable usually translated as?
Yeah, what was that one? I just looked at it a few minutes ago and now I've forgotten. Um, but it's related to the word for justice.
Yeah.
17 here. Oh yeah, it's tradition. It's typically translated as like gentle, um, but it has more to do with fair and appropriate, equitable.
Uh-huh.
Like I didn't make up the word equitable. That's one of the things listed in the
Yeah.
lexicons as
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
possible. Yeah, um, which makes much more. I mean, gentle works too, but we already captured that one earlier in the paragraph. Um,
Yeah.
it is more in the sense of what's fair, what's right, what's
Mm-hmm.
equitable
Mm-hmm.
for the people who need that the most.
Yeah. That's great. And the open-mindedness is something that is
Mm-hmm.
in James's list. It's concealed in
Yeah.
other translations, but damn, that's pretty rad.
Mm-hmm.
As a disposition of speech, not just hearing, open-mindedness of discourse, a way of speaking that is open-minded,
Right.
not hearing.
Being willing to be persuaded,
Yeah.
which over and over again, these words that are like at their core mean persuade or persuadable get translated in most translations as obedient or compliant,
Oh
um,
crap.
which which just like in this context especially, like there's nothing about that. in this whole chapter. Why would that suddenly make it into the list? But the core meaning of this word is the sense of being persuadable. Like, be willing to admit you're wrong and learn from those who are most impacted.
And leaders are going to be so tempted towards certainty, towards confidence, towards mansplaining. That's what we're going to be tempted by when we have the floor, when we have the mic.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, this chapter is verse 1. It's about those who would teach among you. Verse 13 here, the beginning of this paragraph, those who are wise and knowledgeable among you, prove it by how you act. Like, it's this whole chapter is talking to leaders, not the people who are supposed to be being obedient to leaders, right? Like, it's...
Yeah, we forget how to read it as an actual letter written to some people and hear the consistent intent. But yeah, I mean, the capstone of this being the fruit justice is planted with peace between those who make peace. Like, are you increasing harmony in the world? Not the absence of conflict, but the capacity to create together.
But shalom, well-being, completeness, wholeness between, like, creating a unity that's good for everybody.
Victory over hostility and antagonism. Victory is another aspect of shalom. Yeah. Yeah. Not victory, stabby. Victory over stabby.
That's... The stabby is from the Hinnom Valley.
Yes. Yeah. From there and goes there. Well, on the note of stabby, we got a cutty the end of this episode here. So thank you very much for joining us today. The easiest way to support Found in Translation is to leave us a rating or review on whatever app or podcast player or website you've been enjoying this on. It makes it easier for more people to find the show, especially Apple Podcasts and YouTube. You can find us on Facebook as Found in Translation. You can read the Liberation and Inclusion Translation at www.litbible.net and follow its development with Brandon Velez Johnson on Threads at lit.bible and on Blue Sky at litbible.net and read more of his work at litbible.net/articles. You can follow me on Threads as @BBRhodes. The music you're listening to is by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. Found in Translation was produced on unceded Chinook and Kalapuya land. Goodbye, Brandon.
Bye, Brandon.
Bye, everybody.